Bases dropped on your pre-Thanksgiving version of Soccer Down Here. Morning. It's a Wednesday, so it's a wall pass Wednesday. A couple of different directions we'll go this morning. We'll go through the traffic of the day, and we'll get you set for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be obviously on tape in a bunch of different ways, and that's also something that we've got to get into this morning. I mean, we do have requests, but I'm still trying to fill out the list for programming for tomorrow so you guys can, while you're at the table, while you're getting things ready, while you're traveling, you can have your day and you can listen to whatever you want to tomorrow. Some housekeeping. Looks like Nico Moreno will actually be Thursdays with Nico. We're going to tape it, I think, later today, and it will run tomorrow as normal. So it'll be a separate half-hour show on the network where Nico will break down what we've seen, especially in CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, and then we'll get you ready for the playoffs this weekend with Nico's perspective. So that'll be on the network. Like I said, when we started trying to plot the programming grid for tomorrow, I know a lot of folks have enjoyed when we fixed the MLS All-Star game, so we'll put that segment back up online. The Soccer for Good OG has mentioned that she wanted some mascot stuff from soccer over there, plus some Bentner and some Icardi from soccer over there. So that'll probably get rolled over in some form or fashion. And these will be chunks of the show. I'm not just going to put like highlights up or something. So it'll be like good chunks that you can listen to all day long and, you know, get you ready for whatever your Turkey Day plans are. It'll be programming to get you through the day tomorrow, plus some new stuff with Nico as well. And we'll get you ready for your Thursday. Friday might be a little bit of a power hour kind of a deal. And it's just to get you ready for the weekend. We'll see what happens on Thursday, get you ready for the weekend, take you through Friday, and go through Major League Soccer and all those kinds of things. And so that's where we are this morning. So once again, John, hear you there. Thanks for hanging out with us for another go-around of Soccer Down Here. And opening kickoff, I mean, we're going to talk CONMEBOL, we're going to talk CONCACAF, and we're going to go through the news of the morning and all these kinds of things. So whatever's on your mind, lay it out there. But and I'll keep reminding as folks continue to add in. What are you up to for Thanksgiving? You traveling? You staying at home? What's the dishes? Is there anything specifically on the menu that is family specific? Because there is when it comes to our celebration. I will be morning, Knicks. I will be going to a suburb of Montgomery, Alabama for family coming one direction, family coming another direction, midpoint, Montgomery. And we will be getting into all of those kinds of discussions as we go this morning. So opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. And once again, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off of your purchase. They, in turn, our friends at Kickoff Coffee, they, in turn, take 10% reinvested into youth games and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And Nick's just get better. He's trying to recover from being sick, planning to visit his cousin's house if you're well enough. And so I'm going to Pike Road. So I'm going to Pike Road, Alabama tomorrow, and drifting in there. So family, that is the midpoint of where folks gather is Pike Road, Alabama. So it is a suburb. It's about 8 miles as you travel toward Montgomery. There's an exit you take. It's about 8 miles off. You turn left and you head south, and it's there. So one of the suburbs of Montgomery. Kickoff might go for a while this morning, because of what happened in CONMEBOL last night. And it was crazy, to say the very least. You know, after events are happening and you're getting everything squared away, you know what your evening's going to be. You want it to be Brazil and Argentina, and then you're going to be You kind of were keeping an eye on Canada. We'll get into Canada in just a little bit. Canada, Jamaica, we'll get there. But Canada, Jamaica started the evening off, and you kind of drift over to Brazil and Argentina. Then you're going to want to watch Honduras and Mexico. Honduras had a 2-goal lead. And so we'll play the evening. We'll kind of skip to CONMEBOL first, then we'll go to CONCACAF and play the evening. Yes, basically, Nick's what happened. So opening kickoff is discussing what in the blue hell happened last night at the Maracana. And first and foremost, you look at what Brazil now does on the field, and it's just chippy, and it's slow, and it's prodding, and it's almost angry, and all these different things. And it was angry at points. Gabriel Jesus basically hauls off and smacks Rodrigo to the point to where, and it was done twice, he smacks him, hit him flush, and Rodrigo had to be treated for a bloody nose and no card. Ivan Barton, we'll get into Ivan Barton coming up in a bit. But you go through, history ends up being made at the Maracana. Nicolas Otamendi had a tremendous header. He went up the ladder and grabbed it, and it was Brazil's first ever defeat at home in World Cup qualification. But you wondered for a while if the match was even going to be played. Considering what was going on before the match started. This is from Tim Vickery, who was there for the 4-letter. National anthems are going. Reportedly led to scuffles between rival groups of fans. Local police, who were in riot gear, they were in helmets and they were ready to go, launched and this is how Vickery presents the information. Things escalated when the local police launched a baton charge on the Argentine fans. Situation quickly got out of control. Yellow seats flying through the air as the supporters fought back, fans with blood streaming down their faces, and the video is out there. And, like I said, I'm not going to recommend you go watch it, but the video does exist. Argentine supporters retreated in their sections. Some Brazilians who had nothing to do with the fighting, caught up in the confusion, went diving over the crash barriers and onto the pitch to get away from the conflict. Argentine players had been watching from the halfway line, so they go over to take a closer look. Emi Martinez ends up grabbing police batons, trying to keep police from hitting Argentine supporters. Messi led the players off the field. They go over to that section, and as you're watching, if you were watching the match, it's off to your right. Yeah, Ricky, we're going to be getting into Mexico. Trust me. So players go over. Emi Martinez tries to keep some cops from taking swings at Argentine fans. Literally, he's grabbing at police batons. And Lionel Messi was like, "Nope, we're out of here." He took his players off the pitch. He took his teammates off the pitch. So you were wondering if the match was even going to be played, because remember the last time there was a match of this import, and you remember the head of local security who was just wearing like a golf shirt that was untucked, a pair of jeans, and he had what looked like a 38 shoved down the back of his pants. You remember that incident? That was during COVID. So Argentine players, they go back to the locker room. You're wondering if this thing's even going to get played. And here's what Vickery says. Surely would have been better had the police, instead of launching their charge, had merely held a line separating the fans of Argentina from those of Brazil, but it's truly astonishing that they were so close together, as segregating fans is routine in the Maracana. The visiting support is usually placed high up in one of the corners, with the seats below left vacant to ensure an adequate separation. None of that happened on Tuesday. So the Argentina fans were behind one of the goals, directly next to the organized group of Brazil followers. Anatorg, Brazil's organization of organized supporters, had warned before the game that this was a mistake. Their words were not heeded. Game kicked off 27 minutes late. And so Brazil had lost twice. Vickery says, and this was emphasized still further by the approach taken by interim coach Fernando Diniz, who reminded me a lot of Kenny Powers. I don't know why. Just kind of looked like Kenny Powers. Front line of 4. So basically, it was a 4-2-4 that Diniz lined up with. Rafinha, Rodrigo, Gabriel Jesus, and Martinelli. 2 in the midfield. And so you had that lineup. Argentina found it hard to lengthen the game, according to Vickery. Play behind Brazil's high defensive line. Scaloni tweaked to a 4-4-2. Rodrigo and Enzo Fernandez in the middle. Lo Celso and Alexis out wide. McAllister would drift in, attacking Acuna. Brazil had a couple of moments. Then Otamendi's moment, second time in 4 matches, 6 goals and 109 caps for Nicolas Otamendi. Second time in 4 matches, an Otamendi goal from a corner. Brazil finished the match with 10. Joelinton sent off for palming off to Paul. Now get this. Rodrigo got popped twice. Rodrigo gets popped twice. Both of those should have been cards, and they weren't. Joelinton comes in as a sub, just kind of waves at him, kind of pushes and waves and kind of, spins hands like a defensive lineman in a drill. And that's what gets somebody sent off. Barely made any contact, but sure, okay, fine. And so the ref, harsh. Gabriel Jesus a little lucky to stay on in the first half. Brazil is now in 6th place in the qualifying table. Campaign does not resume until next September. So 10 months to think about being 6th. And everybody's thinking, okay, Ancelotti will be in by then, so everything should be fine. So that was like half of what was going on, or a portion of what was going on. With it being delayed and just craziness. You got fans who were panicking. And like I said, I was watching on Telemundo the whole time. Messi after the match, quote, "We saw how they, meaning the police, were hitting people, and many players had family members in that area. Couldn't focus on playing the game. This also happened here in the Copa Libertadores. Brazilian police again repressing the people." That's a direct quote from Lionel Messi. Argentina told Brazil they would only return to the pitch after the situation was calm. 22 plus 5, and then everything starts. "I think we did that to calm things down a bit." Messi continued, "There could have been a disaster. When everything calmed down, we decided to ask how everyone was to find out. Then we went out." That particular section held about 3,000 fans. All 69,000 tickets were sold. Messi posted to Instagram after the match, "This team continues to make history," and this is translated. "Great victory at the Maracanã, although it will be marked by the repression of Argentina fans once again in Brazil. This madness can't be tolerated, and it has to end now." So that's what you were staring at. And like I said, just going over it for 10 to 15 minutes barely goes to cover what was going on. But right now in CONMEBOL, you got a team that is in serious trouble. And they can't wait. They cannot wait for Carlo Ancelotti to show up and try to turn things around. So that's where things are in CONMEBOL. It was a mess last night, an absolute mess. So 10 months we get to wait for CONMEBOL to kick back in. 6th place right now, Brazil. So that's a bit of your opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Once again, there's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Once again, remember, use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right, more housekeeping. Mentioned it yesterday, and for those of you that were not here on the live side of things, then thanks for watching us on Twitch and on the 280 Character app and on our YouTube channel. We are reissuing the Atlanta is American Soccer. We're reissuing the scarf for the holidays, and it is part of a fundraiser for our friends in the Marshall Islands. It is step 1 of the process. So if you didn't get it the first time, here's what it is, and I'm trying to do it in short range here. So that's the first part. There's your quote. Atlanta is American Soccer from Vic Crow back in 1968. And on the flip side, it is, if I could read it, yesterday, today, and always. So we're reissuing the scarf. Morning, OG. We are reissuing the scarf as a part of a fundraiser. So just reach out to me and DM me and let us know. But it's part of a fundraising effort, and we're trying to help out our friends in the Marshall Islands. So that is part of it. And so if you're interested, let us know. It's in development. It's in redevelopment right now. So redeveloping the scarf, and that's part 1 of 2 that we're getting together to help out our friends with the Marshall Islands, because they want to do some things here stateside in 2024. So we're going to try to help them out and help them out as best we can. So that's part of things. Okay, now that we've done opening kickoff, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Nix has already said. And give me, if it exists, when it comes to the plate that you are filling, is there, and the tables and everything, is there something family specific that is on your Thanksgiving table? Like a family recipe, that kind of a thing. What's on the table that might be a little out of the ordinary? Or what's on the table that is specifically attached to your family? As an example, in our family, it is a rice dish that is attached to the boss's grandmother and goes by her name, and it is a rice dish. Here's the recipe, and it's real easy. And when the boss and I started dating and she wanted to make meals at home, this is what she would do. And this was one of the first things that she made that got me hooked on her cooking. It is white rice in a bowl, full stick of butter, 2 cans of beef consomme. It is the most fattening thing known to mankind, and you can have it for a meal all by itself. And it is incredible, and it is going to be on the table for Thanksgiving. And it's not just the Thanksgiving dish per se, but it's going to be there. We have it randomly, but it was one of the first things that the boss cooked that is on our Thanksgiving table. So is there anything that is family specific for you or out of the ordinary that wouldn't necessarily be on a normal Thanksgiving, platter menu kind of a thing? Is there something there? Roasted beet salad. Wow, David. What are you thankful for? I need to know that. And like I said, we'll keep rolling through all of this stuff. And let me know what you want on the air tomorrow. Like I said, we're going to repost the MLS All-Star Game Fix. Going to post some soccer over there, mascots and things. So if there's anything specific that you want reposted to the network to help you through your day tomorrow, let us know. Like I said, we'll be back on Friday. We should have a fresh episode of Thursdays with Nico out Thursday as well. And on Friday, like I said, it'll be kind of power hour-y, but we got to look at what happened Thanksgiving. We got to look at Friday. We got to look at the weekend. So we'll go and see and we'll see how long it takes us. But I think a little power hour-y on Friday, and we'll see what happens there. But what are you thankful for? What do you want to hear in the network tomorrow? and what's on the table that is family specific or just random that wouldn't necessarily be with other folks. So those are the questions to the floor. And once again, like I said, we are reissuing the Atlanta is a Soccer City scarf for the holidays to help out our friends in the Marshall Islands as a fundraiser. Let me know. 25 plus 5 or 25 plus shipping. So that's what we're doing there. And it's part one of a process, but we figured what we wanted to do is do something before the end of the year to get things moving. Because like I said, our friends in the Marshall Islands want to try and do some things here on stateside, and we're going to try to help them out as best we can. That's stage one, reissuing the Soccer City scarf. And we've got stage two coming up, hopefully in short order, might be available after the first of the year. It'll be a summer scarf. So summer scarf, Marshall Islands, that should kind of get you thinking about what you might be thinking out in your brain. Last night, we mentioned what was going on in the Brazil-Argentina match. Rodrigo, by the way, had the quote of the evening. And so if you hold your ears, this might get us the explicit warning. I don't know. I may just put it up anyway. So Rodrigo was the one that got popped in the mouth by Gabriel Jesus. And so Rodrigo, after the match, goes, and this is translated. Google Translate said this: "We wanted to be the first to beat Brazil here. And with what happened before the game, we had more anger and we won by playing. We have some amazing balls. The way to make them happy was this: we made history." That's from Rodrigo. We have some amazing balls. So that was Rodrigo after last night. And there was another interesting thing that happened after the match was over. And it comes from Lionel Scaloni. Scaloni might be taking some time to think. After the match, Scaloni was asked about what's going on, and once again translated. He says, "Now it's time to stop the ball and start thinking. These players have given me a lot, and I need to think a lot about what I'm going to do. It's not goodbye, but the bar is very high, and it's difficult to continue, and it's difficult to continue winning. It's time to think." So after last night, the possibility exists that Lionel Scaloni might be out the door. He sounded, just reading that quote, he sounded basically mentally exhausted. He sounded like he was totally gassed. Can you blame the guy? Not really. So we'll keep an eye on Scaloni and see what's going on there with Scaloni and his future with Argentina. Just thought that was interesting. So we'll keep an eye on that. Once again, another 10 months before the next round of CONMEBOL. And we'll get into that discussion next time we catch up with Nico, too. And, yeah, just craziness last night, of course, with the last match in the window. Now to CONCACAF. And we had the two matches last night to try to determine who were going to be the dance partners in the semis at Jerry World. And we got our answers, although it may not necessarily have been the answers that we were looking for, or at least initially thought we were going to get. The early match makes you wonder what in the hell is going on up in Canada. Really? Seriously? Oh, and by the way, Messi ended the calendar year with a muscular issue. Groin injury forced him to be subbed in the 78th minute. Discomfort in his adductor. Last game of the year for him. And we'll get into what was thought to be the next game for Messi and friends, but it might not be. We'll find out what happens there. So we know about the late match, and we'll get into that in a bit. But Canada, bruh, what in the hell happened to you? You got a lead, you're heading in, and then you're not. I mean, legitimately. Jamaica scores 3 goals in 16 minutes. 3 goals in 16 minutes. From the Canadian press. A year after appearing in the World Cup for the first time in 36 years, Canadian men took a step backwards Tuesday in a shocking second-half collapse against Jamaica. Canada loses 3-2 on the night, Jamaica winning the series on the away goals rule, with aggregate tied at 4. A win, Canada would have earned a berth in the Final Four, more importantly, a berth in the Copa America. Now, the Canadians, who are ranked 45th, are out of the tournament and will have to beat Trinidad and Tobago in a play-in match in Frisco, Texas, March 23rd, to make the South American Championship, with no prospect of getting the full team together until then. Once again, that's the CP's wording. Massive disappointment for sure, said Mauro Biello, who is now 2 draws as interim Canada coach. Biello, quote, "For us, there's no excuse for some of the performances in the second half. We shot ourselves in the foot." Might be a little higher than the foot, but yeah, you did some damage. Went into the return leg with a 2-1 lead over Jamaica, ranked 55th in the world. Up the aggregate to 3-1 and a goal in the 25th by Alphonso Davies. The announced crowd was 17,588. Controversial late penalty by Bobby de Cordova-Reid with, I think, 11 minutes to go. Milan Borjan, quote, "We've got to sit down all together, look each other in the eyes, and see what went wrong, because this is unacceptable. This team, to have players like that, to do something like this, it's not acceptable." And this next quote, and I read the next sentence, and all I could think of is Martin the Martian. "I'm very, very angry." Back to Borjan. "I'm very, very angry. As a captain, I'm sorry to the nation that we didn't go to the Nations League semis, but we have another chance in March for the Copa America. We'll try to do everything to bounce back, try to make our nation happy." Kone scored in the 69th, put Canada ahead. Jamaica pulled even on aggregate. Shamar Nicholson scores twice, 63rd and 66th. Mexican referee Cesar Ramos then points to the spot in the 75th after the ball hit Steven Eustachio's arm. CP reads it as it seemed a harsh call, with the Canadian midfielder trying to get his arm down to his side to avoid contact. Ruling survives video review. Bobby de Cordova-Reid slots home the penalty with 12 to go. Eustachio, a harsh call. Mark Anthony K, quote, "Listen, it's CONCACAF." 7 minutes later, so basically 5+ to go, Damari Gray is sent off for a second yellow. Jamaicans hold on for 9 minutes of stoppage time. This was not the only game that had 9 minutes of stoppage time. I'm sensing irony. So Andre Blake came up big. He was dinged up at points. Played the full 90. Quarterfinal winners book their tickets to the Copa. Quarterfinal losers facing off to see which 2 teams join them in the CONCACAF. So Jamaica joins the U.S., Mexico, and Panama. Guest teams next June. Jamaica coach Heimer Hallgrimsson, who took Iceland to the World Cup in 2018. Probably the most important game for Jamaica in a long time. 10 CONMEBOL entries at Copa. 7 teams currently ranked ahead of Canada, including Argentina and Brazil. The loss snapped a record 17-game home undefeated run, 15-0-2 for Canada since a 3-0 loss to Mexico March of 2016. Canada's record at BMO was 15-0-7, dating back to a 2-0 loss to Peru back in 2010. John Herdman had warned of Jamaica's threat ahead of last year's Gold Cup, with the Reggae Boys mining England for players with dual citizenship. 7 of Jamaica's 11 starters play in England. Leon Bailey for Villa, Ethan Pinnock for Brentford, DeCordova Reed and Fulham. Canadian press, Neil Davidson says, sitting out the September international window and playing just once in November due to Canada Soccer's financial issues likely also didn't help the cause. So that's where that is. So you end up with that one, which leads you to the nightcap. We mentioned 9 minutes of stoppage time. We'll get into that. So Mexico gets into the Copa after securing a 2-0 win over Honduras. 2-2 in aggregate. Play the extra 30. Go to PKs. Madness and hysteria. And there was even wondering out loud if Jaime Lozano would have been sacked if they didn't get through this match and advance past Honduras. 2 goals early, or 2 goals to make it 2-2. 43rd minute, Chavez from 30 caught Menjivar off guard, make it 1-0. Edson Alvarez scores. It's supposed to be 9 minutes. It was supposed to be 9 minutes. Turned out to be just a little more. Just a bit more. Legitimately at 100 minutes and 30 seconds. 100 minutes and 30 seconds. Mexico gets the equalizer to make it 2-2. Chested down, turned, fired, screen, gets into the corner past Menjivar. It's 2-2, and we go the extra 30. Then you go to PKs. And PKs had their moments because you had Edric Menjivar come off his line to make saves for Honduras not once and not twice. He had to stay on the line for a third time. He got a yellow for his trouble. So Menjivar makes a save once. Everybody's celebrating. Woo! Nope. Reviewed. Got to go back. Second time. I think it was Huerta in the PKs. Second time, Huerta lines it up. Menjivar saves it. Everybody celebrating. Woo! Nope. Not happening. So then they tried a third time. Huerta gets it past Menjivar. So if you were looking for something crazy, then you got crazy. But Mexico makes it past Honduras. Honduras is a part of the play-in. The Final Four, the Battle Royal in Frisco in March to determine who are the other 2 teams that make it into the Copa America. 100 minutes and 30 seconds. But the other element in this, and I know that there's another element, there was. Late in the match, in the 80s, it was like 89th minute, stuff like that. It was in the 80s. Anytime that there was a goal kick, you got the chant. See, and now the chant in and of itself, it's now just a weapon. You got the words. You get the whole thing. You got the chant. And the center ref, Ivan Barton from Guatemala, just decided to ignore it. For whatever reason. I don't know. I couldn't hear it. I don't know. See, this is where I wish you had one of those situations like we do in Major League Soccer where there's a pool reporter and you get to ask a question to the center ref. I'm wondering if anybody thought to. But late in the match, Mexico is trailing, and this is something, sadly, that we're seeing. Fans are using that chant now as a weapon against their own team in their own building. In the Estadio Azteca, Mexico is trailing 2-1 late. There are goal kicks happening, and you hear those words and that you hear that chant. You hear that chant from the fans there at the Estadio Azteca as a weapon against your own team. I don't know if the ref understood or just understood why it was being done. They're yelling at their own team, trying to get them in trouble. Or if Ivan Barton just decided, nope, it's late, I'm not going to do anything about it. So I'd love to know what his thought process is here. But the chant was there. Late as Mexico is trailing, the Mexico fans are saying, the fans of El Tri are saying this in the same building against their team. Yet Ivan Barton from Guatemala chose to ignore it. And literally, it's like you're watching this match and you're seeing this happen and you're going, really? But sadly, this is something. Sadly, this is something that they feel like they need to do. We're mad, so we're going to lash out, and we're going to lash out the best way we know how. And it's with that chant. As disgusting as it is, it's now a weapon. It is now a weapon for soccer fans, and specifically the soccer fans in Mexico. So that was another moment to roll things through this morning that kind of came across the desk as Mexico. And Ricky, what did you say, Ricky? Mexico got so many breaks. I mean, the team got breaks with the chant. But hey, look, when Honduran players go down as much as they do, and you end up with the egregious time wasting that they had, then there's a part of me that sits there and says, yeah, you might deserve your own fate. So that's kind of part and parcel of the whole thing. But Mexico advances in penalties, and Jamaica advances on aggregate goals, and so we now know the teams that are heading to that are heading in and trying to figure out the Nations League semis. We know who's heading in. We know 4 of the 6. We'll know the other 2 after the games in Frisco in March. But we know the 4, and the matchups have been laid out to where it is apparently. Now, I want to double check this because there were crossover ideas here of I want to see because the matchups, they were like, yeah, it's going to be this one, and then ends up being a crossover. So semifinal number 1, Panama and Mexico at AT&T on March the 21st. Back in then the other semifinal, the U.S. and Jamaica. So great. The U.S. gets to go up against Andre Blake. I'd rather go up against Panama or Mexico, frankly. But, yeah, U.S. and Jamaica, it's 2 and 3. Panama and Mexico is your other semi. So, and then the third place match will happen on the 24th. So March 21st will be your semis. And the final and the third place match will be all at Jerry World on March the 24th. So that's your rundown of Nations League. And if you have some time, drift down the rabbit hole a little bit and go watch the other groups, because it's fun. It's a fun watch. The venues are kind of a hoot, and you can catch all that stuff on Paramount Plus. So that's your wrap up. David, if Mexico is trailing, just blow for full time. It's dumb. I mean, it was 9 minutes in both matches. It helped out. It helped out Mexico, but it did not help out Canada. So that's where we are, March 21, 24, and then you've got the games in Frisco, Texas to determine the other two survivors. So get your tickets now. I had a chance to get part in the pre-sale, but I was debating to figure out, okay, am I just going to go cover it, or do I just want to go out and watch? So that's your CONCACAF update. Once again this morning, let me know what's on the plate for Thanksgiving. Is there anything family specific that is not indigenous to the stereotypic Thanksgiving meal that would appear on the table, that would appear on your plate? What are you thankful for? Ropes, very nicely. Ropes is thankful for the soccer families made through SDH and Atlanta United, as are we. David is having the roasted beet salad attached to his table. Not a fan of beets. I don't know about roasting them. Don't know about a salad. So I'm 3 for 3. But yeah, whatever's on your table that's different from other things, and family specific, those kinds of things. And what are you thankful for? And what do you want to hear on the network tomorrow? Because like I said, we're going to post the All-Star Game Fix. We're going to post some SOT. Should be a fresh Thursdays with Nico that's there, and it'll be all of those things posted to the network tomorrow to make your Thursday go by that much faster. And like I said, Friday, like I said, it's going to be probably something power hour-y. And so it'll be something power hour-y, and we'll go through the weekend and get you ready for that. Because, we've all got to go and shop. We've all got to get ready for all those kinds of things. There's some news this morning. There's a lot of news from a lot of different places. We'll be getting into that as we go. There's the vote that came out with the Premier League sides. We know who voted against it, and they needed like a 2/3 majority, and they were one team away from getting that 2/3 majority, and now people are mad at Sheffield United for voting the way that they did, and all of that chaos that's been attached to it. So we'll get into that. We'll go through the papers. We'll go through all the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Okay. So Bart, who is driving from one location to the other, as he mentioned yesterday, he's going from one location to the next to pick up folks to head to Bluffton, South Carolina. Was Athens, Milledgeville, Bluffton. After the show, I'm heading to Jefferson for some TV stuff myself. But so Athens, Milledgeville, Bluffton. Bart previewing everything. He's got a Soccer for USPOD dropping at 11. Or at least it's being mailed to me at 11 o'clock. So we'll turn that in short order, too. So you'll have plenty to play with on your Thanksgiving playlist here at SDH. All right, so let's get into the other things that are going on, and I've got to find the story because I want to get the wording correct. And it has to do with the Premier League and the 8 teams and the vote and the crossovers and the Saudi teams that are linked and all these kinds of things. So Jacob Whitehead, David Ornstein, and more. Like we say, when you have more than one writer attached to an article, then you know that there's a lot going on. So from our friends at The Athletic, and their stuff on the international side, tremendous, fantastic writers. Ornstein, Crafton, Whitehead, all of them. Less than 2 minutes until the meeting, and they're presenting the narrative. Amanda Staveley's rushing into the hotel. Newcastle chief exec Darren Eales had been at the venue for the preceding half hour. Club execs mingling. And so you have all of the stuff that's on the agenda. The most high-profile element, vote on whether there should be a temporary ban for the coming January window on related party loans. Proposed block of incoming loans to the Premier League between teams who share owners. Popularly viewed as a law targeting Newcastle, who amid an injury crisis, and like I said, this is the wording of Whitehead and Ornstein, who amid an injury crisis and tied against financial fair play laws, could have looked to the 4 Saudi clubs also owned by the PIF for emergency cover. Al Hilal's Ruben Neves had been a name heavily linked, but The Athletic reported back on Tuesday that the Portugal international not expected to leave Saudi Arabia in January. Neves' name has not been discussed internally at Newcastle this season either, according to those familiar with the subject, but the principle still stands. Other topics in the meeting included general affiliate transactions, whether between clubs with the same owners or between clubs and sponsors with the same owners, attempting to make the governance more robust. Proposals suggested that if the Premier League disagreed with a related party transaction, then the offending party would be liable for compensation rather than the league blocking the transaction before it took place. Multiple sources said that could potentially extend to personal liability. And then the New Deal. And this is a big thing, too. An initiative for the 20 top flight teams to hand over millions to the 72 EFL clubs who make up the second, third, and fourth tiers, the Championship, League One, and League Two, to hope to avoid future crises further down the football ladder. Well, good luck on that. No vote was held. Work still to be done to reach a consensus. This is thought to be close. Clubs keen to strike a deal before the introduction of an independent regulator. Everton was not on the agenda. So you have clubs holding preparatory meetings, and it was understood the Premier League backed both motions, marking a rare defeat for the league. Both voting motions narrowly failed to pass, despite garnering majority support. The proposal to block January loans attracted 12 votes, 2 away from passing. Proposition on wider affiliate transactions gained 13. You need 14. It's understood the clubs who voted against the temporary ban on January loans, Burnley, Chelsea, Everton, Newcastle, Forest, City, Sheffield United, and Wolves. Most of these clubs, or potentially soon, will be part of multi-club ownership models. Sheffield United with the United World Group, Forest with Greece's Olympiacos, Chelsea with Strasbourg, Manchester City with City Football Group. Understood that one of these sides had rung around floating voters in search of support in recent days. Everton, they're still engaged in the takeover discussions with 777, and we've let you know everything about 777 that we could find our hands on. 777 owns Genoa and Standard Liège, and the fans in those countries of those two clubs, they ain't winning fans with 777 as the ownership group. And, of course, obviously, Everton's still pissed about the 10-point deduction. Burnley's owned by Alan Pace, and they had to get a loan from Dell Capital to kind of make things meet. And you know, remember how we were discussing how that loan was structured with all of its different steps. They've been exploring partner clubs. United voted with the Premier League on both issues, which may be seen as a surprise, according to Whitehead and Ornstein, given they're poised to sell 25% of the club to Ineos, which owns Nice and Lausanne. Brighton, also part of a multi-club network, voted with the majority, though UEFA has already implemented a ban on transfers or loans between Brighton and Union Saint-Gilloise, who are also owned by Tony Bloom. And that's a ban until next September, after both qualified for European football this season. Also noted by rivals that while Sheffield United are part of a multi-club group, they are also, like Newcastle, Saudi-owned. Wolves have explored partner clubs in recent years, but have no formal partnerships. Motivations unknown. So we have the question mark bubble hanging over the head as to why Wolves. Their owners are Fosun Group. Fosun chair Guo Zhangcheng's wife, Jenny, is the majority shareholder of Switzerland's Grasshoppers Zurich. Not every club involved in multi-club ownership automatically backed the motion. One team who would ordinarily side against the proposed rule change to preserve their ability to loan players from their partner clubs gave serious consideration to voting in favor, purely to prevent other Premier League teams from getting a potentially bigger advantage from them. So basically, tell you what, if we can't do it, you can't either. That's why we're voting no. 45 minutes of discussion. One argument, the rule changes shouldn't be made mid-season. The optics that doing so would be targeted at one particular team, meaning Newcastle. One side who entered with the line of thinking changed their view during the meeting with another side who theoretically opposed a midseason change, still voting in favor of the motion because they weren't that bothered about a motion, which only affected a single window. So what does this all mean? One more Premier League meeting before the end of the year, most likely in December, not set to affect January. Newcastle are still allowed to borrow players from related parties this winter. Dan Ashworth, Newcastle's technical director, did not dismiss the possibility of the club looking to the Saudi market for loans when asked about it earlier this month. In reality, according to Whitehead, the significance of this vote may only be seen down the line. If the Saudi Pro League progresses, looking to be a top 10 league globally, competition will attract an ever-increasing caliber of players, in theory, giving Newcastle a potential advantage. Other sources present at the meeting believe the second vote on more general related party transactions could ultimately prove more important. It addresses related party transactions, ascertaining what amounts to fair market value, rather than being solely concerned with January loans. Currently, clubs who want to conduct transfer business or strike sponsorship deals with related parties have to submit the transaction proposal to the Premier League. Clubs would have been able to proceed immediately without prior approval. But if the Premier League later decided about fair market value, would hold the offending club directly financially liable. Bylaw suggests that any transaction should also require proof of a second bid at a comparable level. So basically, what they're saying is, okay, you want to pull somebody from Saudi Pro, that's cool. But much like what we've seen with advertising revenue and values of sponsorships along those same lines, you want to pull somebody from Saudi Pro, tell me what he's worth to make sure that the team in England is paying what that worth actually is, and they're not paying less because of an affiliated arrangement. So as we go, look for these kinds of things. Keep an eye on it. See what happens after the January window and see how things continue to progress there. So Premier League teams whose owners have stakes in other clubs. Arsenal, obviously, and I know that Bart is listening, Stan Kroenke, and I'm trying to make sure that he doesn't drive off the road. Villa's owners have a tie and ownership stake in Vitória Guimarães in Portugal. Bournemouth with Bill Foley. They have added Lorient and Auckland FC in New Zealand. Remember, we talked about Brighton and Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium, Chelsea with Strasbourg. Crystal Palace. John Textor, Botafogo in Brazil, Lyon and Molenbeek in Belgium. David Blitzer, Alkersson, Den Haag, Augsburg, RSL, Waasland-Beveren in Belgium. Belgium seems to be a pretty popular place to get assets. Manchester City, CFG, Bahia, Girona, Lommel in Belgium, Melbourne City, Montevideo City, Torque in Uruguay, Mumbai City, NYCFC, Palermo, Sichuan Junyu in China, Troy, and Yokohama Marinos in Japan. Newcastle, Al Ahly, Al Ittihad, Al Hilal, Al Nasser. Remember, those are all Saudi Pro. Forest is tied to Olympiacos. Sheffield United is tied to Al Hilal United in the UAE. Beerschot and Kerala United and Châteauroux in France. West Ham, remember, Sparta Prague. So Slater, Sheldon, Ornstein, and Whitehead. Piece that one together for you. So keep an eye on that when it comes to everything that you're staring at with the Premier League and how things might go with your favorite clubs and other clubs and fair market value and all those kinds of things. All those kinds of things you got to keep an eye on. Getting close to the top of the hour once again here on your Wall Pass Wednesday. Once again, what's on your mind? What's on your mind today? What's on your table tomorrow? What's weird or atypical on your table that is not on other tables attached to other folks? And are you driving? I know Bart's driving. So anything else on your mind this morning? Lay it all out there. What do you want to hear on Thursday? Like I said, like Bart said, you'll get a fresh round of Soccer for USPOD coming up later today. Nico Moreno on tape. We'll be doing that one later. That will air tomorrow. Tomorrow, once again, dealer's choice. What do you guys want to have on the network to get you through your Thanksgiving? Let me know. And we'll post it to the network. Like I said, I've been taking notes the entire time. Taking notes. Here's what the notes kind of look like. If I can shine them away from giving you a glare for those of you watching on the TV side. But All-Star Game fix, mascots, Bentner, Morrow and Wanda, all those kinds of things. So that is what is temporarily on the table this morning. And we talked about what went on last night in CONMEBOL and in CONCACAF, and we are wondering what in the wide world of sports is going on with all of that. And apparently, in the U17 tournament earlier this morning, Uzbekistan looked like they were about to eliminate England in the U17s. And ball goes out of play. The Uzbek coach just literally hums the ball into the stands, and apparently a fight broke out. So glorious matchup for what we're thinking about the beautiful game this morning. Did you see? Barnsley, and this is from the FA Cup. This is the FA Cup, not the Gummy Bear Cup, but the FA Cup. Courtesy of our friends at TalkSport. Barnsley have been removed from the FA Cup after fielding an ineligible player in the early rounds of the tournament. How can you do that? Yeah, he's ineligible. Yeah, we'll go ahead and play anyway. Figure we won't get caught. Be all right. Barnsley, the Tykes. Interesting. I guess they're youngins. The Tykes fielded an ineligible player. This is courtesy of our friends at TalkSport. They fielded an ineligible player for the first-round replay with Horsham. The match they went on to win 3-0. League One side due to face a trip to Sutton United December 2nd. However, it'll be the Isthmian League Premier Division side who take their place. So they breached Rule 103. Barnsley admitted it, and they're out. An administrative error was brought to our attention regarding the eligibility of a player who played in last Tuesday's game with Horsham. Have been in contact with the club. Would like to thank the chairman for their understanding and cooperation throughout this process. We'd like to apologize to our fans. The mistake, although unintentional, falls way below the high standards we set at this club and is simply not what you deserve. We've already conducted a full internal investigation and have subsequently put safeguards in place to ensure this will never happen again. Basically, yeah, we got caught. We know it. Yeah, we got caught. We know. We got caught. We're good. Sorry. You're apologizing because you got caught. No other reason. You're apologizing because you got caught. I'm just saying, Just saying that you got caught. I mean, how do you... I mean, I know how, but I'm kind of doing this kind of somewhat rhetorically as I drop my notes. It's like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do it. FIFA goofed. I know that's a shock. We'll get into that in a second. Manchester United, by the way, Jamie Jackson over at The Guardian. Manchester United players believe the poor start is due to overworking in the preseason. So they had a hard preseason, and that's why they think they've had such a crappy start. A section of players at Manchester United believe the team's poor start is down to Erik ten Hag overworking the squad in the preseason. They've complained of the beginning the campaign feeling as tired as when they finished the previous one. And a lot of this is going to be anonymously sourced. Those discontented include several senior squad members. Say that 10 times fast. Understood, none have explicitly aired their concerns to Erik ten Hag, who believes his players are fully committed and comprehend the need for sacrifice if United are to be consistently successful. In preseason, the manager is thought to have upped the intensity of training in an attempt to make United title contenders. 8 friendlies, 4 in Norway, Scotland, England, Ireland, and the others played during a 12-day trip to the U.S., New Jersey, San Diego, Houston, Vegas. Welcome to Major League Soccer. With all your travel that you think is difficult. Came after many of the squad had participated in the World Cup midseason. Jackson continues, Ten Hag may have been governed by commercial demands with regard to the preseason itinerary. Christian Eriksen complained about the traveling after they lost to Borussia Dortmund in Vegas. But he also stated a tough preseason was to be expected. So last season, Ten Hag leads United to the Gummy Bear Cup, FA Cup final, and 3rd place, returning the team to the Champions League. This season, they've lost 9 of 18. You'll hear Drew Dickinson, I'm sure, yell his head off about it on Prem and Proper Friday. A record that includes being knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Newcastle. And you'll hear Maddie probably talk about Newcastle on Prem and Proper on Friday. And defeat of their 4 Champions League group in 3 of the 4 Champions League matches in group. Premier League, lost 5, won 7, sitting 6th. 5 points behind Spurs. Plagued with injuries and other absences. Having to cope without up to 16 players. 16 players. During the international break, it was Rashford and Onana. Ten Hag believes fortunes will turn when more players are available. And obviously, there's going to be some front office change when Sir Jim Ratcliffe takes over with his 25% purchase. Looks like Richard Arnold is CEO. Jean-Claude Blanc, who is CEO of Ineos, may succeed Arnold as CEO. Sir Dave Brailsford, Ineos sporting director, could also take a key role. John Murtaugh, football director, has no plans to follow Arnold and depart. So Bart on his drive. Hopefully, sir. Both hands on the wheel. So Bart chimes in this morning and he goes, you ever realize, feel like Andy Rooney, you ever realize that the people who most complain about the international breaks are the Europeans, mostly the English and German, and no one from the Western Hemisphere? Sorry, our competitions are entertaining and yours are normal. Mm-hmm. And so Bart helping us out with some work from our friends at Project Football, where there's no international break for 4 months. Honestly, you can't have 3. You got to have 2. It's too many windows to create too much of an issue. Too much of an issue. But yeah, when I'm sitting here staring at that article, and you're looking at the tour of the United States, Jersey, San Diego, Houston, Vegas. Like I said, welcome to a slammed in Major League Soccer schedule because of an international window. Home, away, home, away. Think of it that way. Yeah, how many teams? How many teams in Major League Soccer have to have compressed schedules when it comes to international windows and players leaving their teams? Oh, I don't know. All of them? I'm just saying. Everybody, it's like, wow, this travel here. I was surprised by this travel in Major League Soccer. Shouldn't have been. Shouldn't have been. And speaking of England, since I can't do the voice, I will have you just envision Nick and Jason do it. Harry Maguire went off on soft penalties. and urges the Premier League to lead the way. He says, life is getting close to impossible for defenders. It's impossible, I tell you. It's impossible. Sorry, that was not a direct quote. David Heitner says that Maguire has expressed despair at the number of soft and ridiculous penalties being awarded in top-level football and called on the Premier League to lead the way in raising the threshold. According to Heitner, Maguire was on the right end of a questionable decision on Monday night, not penalized for a first-half barge, Heitner's word, on North Macedonian forward Eljif Elmas inside the area. Skopje was host to and this is once again Heitner's words, a hugely debatable penalty after Rico Lewis was pulled up for a foul on Bojan Miovski. Lewis, on his senior international debut, won a clearing header, but in the act of doing so, put his hand in Miovski's face, which was enough for VAR to recommend the penalty. So, Ropes, he's saying that it was in the first half. So I did not watch the pitch in Skopje as much as I would have liked to. I did not watch England and North Macedonia. So if he is saying the last penalty he had where he tackled the guy from behind soft, so we'll see what happens. Pickford saved the kick from Enos Barty. North Macedonia converts the rebound. Euros wrap up in that match 1-1. So Maguire described the penalty as a terrible decision and said that life was becoming close to impossible for defenders. Quote, and I can't do a Harry Maguire, so I'm just going to have to read the quote. For me, penalties in the last 6 months to a year or so, especially in the Premier League, all over the world, really the Champions League, they're given for anything. They are so soft. Someone should please talk to Harry Maguire and introduce him to Mikhailo Mudryk. Let those two have a conversation. They're so soft, they're making life so hard for defenders to defend the way it should be. You should be able to defend. You should be able to move your arm. You should be able to move your body. You should be able to make contact. You should be able to move your hands and get there. There's far too many soft penalties given at the moment. Maguire is could be pointing at decisions that have gone against him. Remember the handball in the 4-3 loss at Copenhagen. Christian Eriksen against Bayern Munich. Maguire insists his argument is not only based on matches in which he has been involved. Quote. So this is a blanket statement from Harry Maguire, not just about stuff that's happened to him, directly or indirectly, club or country. The threshold of giving penalties definitely needs to change. And I think the Premier League, the biggest league in the world, needs to start it. They need to come up with something, because I've seen some penalties in the Premier League since the start of this season, which for me are just ridiculous. It's not just at my club. Watching them each weekend, I see them given for handballs where I don't know where the lads are supposed to put their arms. Minimal contact. The last time I checked, you're supposed to, keep them at the side so you don't get called for a penalty. It's a contact sport. So starting with the biggest league in the world, they need to set the standard, and the threshold needs to be a little bit higher than it is at the moment. Maguire blamed the really, really bad pitch in North Macedonia for the way that he lost his balance before going into Elmas for the penalty, which was not given. The surface at Tosh Proski was recently relayed after heavy criticism, but it drew more of the same on Monday, with England players relieved to escape with deep cuts and grazes. Maguire, where do I start? I've not played on a pitch as bad as that for a while. It was basically sand. My foot kept getting stuck. You saw in the first half, I made a challenge after my foot got stuck in the ground. My knees are all grazes. Every time we went on the floor, it was sand. It was like falling on a beach. It was that bad out there. Jack Grealish rolled up his tracksuit Shows Heidner, look at my leg here. I don't know how the referee didn't give a foul. I've got cuts all over. The pitch was awful. It baffles me how pitches like that are acceptable. There were little stones everywhere. Phil Foden has cut his hand because of the stones on the pitch, but it's part of what you're going to get in some places. So Harry Maguire, not happy. Harry Maguire is less than happy. About the whole thing. Not a surprise. Now, we mentioned FIFA goofing. It has to do, and this is probably something that that Bart could wander into. Okay, so Harry Maguire escapes the red for the rugby tackle. Ropes has posted the YouTube link, and I'm staring at it right now. And so basically, it's a big shove, but how much of it is pushing folks over and all that kind of stuff? Okay, so all right, thank you. All right, so I'm watching it again. Maguire, yeah, it's a shove, but how much of it is the player going over, and how to me it's like getting a bit of an accentuated movement. So Maguire pushes the North Macedonian striker, and I mean it's not like a full-blown shove or anything. Gives him a push. North Macedonian striker kind of sits there and falls over. And but yeah, if Maguire's got any issues, he needs to talk to Mykhailo Mudryk. He needs to talk to Mykhailo Mudryk about it. But FIFA goofing. Once again, I know that I'm going to try to make sure that Bart has both hands on the wheel as I discuss this, since he's driving from point A to point B. Players from several teams at this year's Women's World Cup finals in Australia and New Zealand are receiving appreciably less than they hoped as a result of a significant level of tax imposed on their match earnings by the Australian Tax Office. All players whose teams were based in Australia for the duration of the tournament are receiving just over 2/3 of the match fees, with the ATO imposing a 32.5% withholding tax. 32.5%. I don't know what our tax rates are, but 32.5 seems steep. The imposition of this tax was an integral part of the hosting agreement that FIFA agreed with the Australian government. In contrast, all teams that played their group and knockout matches in New Zealand had no deductions from their match fees. They were given tax-free status by New Zealand's Inland Revenue Department. Teams who played in both countries taxed on a pro rata basis of the amount of games played in Australia. Nigeria's players who reached the last 16, narrowly losing to England, earned $60,000 each player, but only received $40,500 after the ATO's deductions. Ademola Alagire, Director of Communications for the Nigeria Fed, quote, the tax authorities, based on the contract they had with FIFA, deducted 32.5%, meaning each player got $40,500 each against $60,000. The players were shown the email from FIFA. Uchenna Kanu said it was in accordance with what the NFF had told the players. Meanwhile, Zambia played all 3 of their games in New Zealand, were not taxed at all. All our players received every penny that they were promised by FIFA. We did not impose any tax at our end either, according to Ruben Kamanga, General Secretary of the Football Association of Zambia. I'm surprised that those who played in Australia had taxes imposed on their earnings. Players from South Africa are facing double taxation from the South African Revenue Service as well as the ATO. Banyana played most of their games in New Zealand. The ATO taxed them pro rata for the days spent in Australia. Lydia Monyapau, CEO of the South African Football Association, quote, for every match played in Australia, the participating associations had to withhold the tax. South African Revenue Service will also be coming for their share at the end of the tax year because we didn't withhold enough. An NFF official, Nigerian, said the Australian tax imposition, especially for players from developing countries for whom the match fees from FIFA can be life-changing, is bitterly disappointing. Quote, FIFA goofed. and players at the same tournament are being taxed differently. This is a huge amount of money for players to lose. FIFA, the so-called apostle of fair play, did not apply financial fair play to the teams in Australia. FIFA spokesperson told The Guardian, as a part of this investigation, participating national associations duly informed of the tax situation before the tournament. However, there was no explanation as to why a single tax regime for all players' fees was not agreed upon by FIFA and World Cup hosts. FIFA said it has credited prize money to cover the financial contributions specifically earmarked for all players at the tournament to all 32 participating member associations. Since the conclusion of the tournament, FIFA has provided tailored support to PMAs regarding the distribution of payments to players. This support is another concrete step taken by FIFA to develop women's football and ensure players receive a fair deal. All distributions from FIFA to PMAs from the tournament will be subject to audit in due course, end quote. FIFA spokesperson, though, admitted that the organization understood how the reduction in match fees will upset the players, but that the deductions were made in accordance with Australian law and hosting agreement, and that there was nothing the organization could do about it. So if you played in Australia, you got taxed again. Just an FYI. Rich Ransom. Heard about this before with some UFC fighters. A fighter from Canada, John Makdessi's earnings revealed his gross show purse as $58,000 with a little over $3,400 in deductions due to airfare and medical bills, and a whopping 45% deduction due to Australian foreign federal tax. All in all, reduced his purse to just under $28,500. $28,461. Man. Lesson learned, maybe don't either set more money aside or just don't do things in Australia because of the tax structure. Man, that's big. That's a lot of stuff. That is a lot. That is a lot. 58,000 to 28,400. That's not cool. Once again, reminder, thanks to everybody who's hanging out here this morning on a Wednesday. And we'll go through all the other news that we've got, all the other stuff that's on the list. And there's since we're in the Premier League, there's another thing about Manchester City that we'll get into because of what's been going on there. But once again, remember, let me know what you want to hear tomorrow. Let me know what's on your table tomorrow, what's your day like tomorrow, and is there something on the table that is just your family's thing? Like I said, mine is a rice dish that comes from the boss's grandmother. And it's ridiculous, and I will eat it all season long. I'll eat it all year long. So let me know what you want on the network tomorrow. Yeah, we talked about Argentina, Brazil, and how crazy it was, Rich. But, I give Rodrigo full credit for the quote. We have amazing balls. Amazing balls. I mean, Emmy Martinez trying to keep police batons from hitting supporters. Messi pulling the team off the field. The game starting 27 minutes late. And the fact that Nicolas Otamendi scores his 6th goal in his 109th cap. Absolutely insane and ridiculous. And Brazil, we always have this vision of Brazil. And Rich, let me know what you think as well, since you've circled us back here. Brazil under Diniz. It's just a bunch of dudes that want to knock you over. It's physical. There's no real, we're used to the beautiful game and all these kinds of things. And Brazil. This morning, look what I'm wearing this morning. From our friends at Roots of Fight, by the way. I broke out my Pele stuff unintentionally. Knowing that we were going to be talking about Argentina and Brazil, I did not wear this on purpose. But if you think about it, what we've seen in the past from Brazil is nothing like what we're seeing now. Gabriel Jesus basically smashing his hand right in the face of Rodrigo to where Rodrigo has to have his nose plugged. No card. Rodrigo gets popped again, no card. Charlison comes in, or Joelinton comes in second half and doesn't touch him. He kind of spins into him and pushes him a little bit. That's what gets you a red? Okay, fine, great. Yeah, oh, definitely. I remember Dunga. But I mean, this has gone past tough. I mean, it's like the offense wants to try to over physical things. There's no beauty there anymore. Literally, they want to try to bully you into knocking you over and then winning possession back and going back the other way. It's like once the defense gives the offense something to do, the offense doesn't know what to do with it anymore. And I know that Brazil is sitting there and thinking that, yeah, Ancelotti will fix everything, but that's over there. What's going on with Denise? What's going on with Denise right now? I have no earthly clue. And they're sixth. They are sixth in CONMEBOL right now. Sixth. One more than five, or one lower than five in standings. One lower than fifth in the standings right now. That's not good. That is not good. Argentina right now, 6 matches, the 1 loss. They've got 15 points. Uruguay, with this window, 13 points. Colombia, 6 matches, 12. They've drawn their last 3. Venezuela, vamos Venezuela! Down to 4th at 9. Ecuador is up to 8 points in 5th. Brazil, 2-1-3. 2-1-3. They've lost their last 2. 7 points. Paraguay ahead of Chile on goal difference, 5.7 and 8. Bolivia's at 3 points. They've lost 4 of 5. Peru has lost 4 of 5, only 1 point in their last 5 matches, and they are in 10th. All of those folks are going to be staring at Brazil now. Brazil is not the same team that they were. Brazil's my other favorite team, Rich says after the U.S. Brazil lost to Jogo Bonito a long time ago. Not enough good fancy guys anymore. Yeah, but I mean, now it's not even, it's just, I'm going to knock you over, I'm going to foul you, I'm going to be physical, try to win the ball back. And I mean, overly physical. I mean, it's just like we were talking about with Rodrigo. Gabriel Jesus takes his hand, pops him square in the nose, hits him flush. And literally, Rodrigo goes down and he's bleeding. No card. Rodrigo gets popped again, no card. But then Joelinton sits there and it's just kind of like, twist, push, boom. You get a card and you're gone. You're down to 10. That's what does it for you? Okay, fine. I know we'd have reffing down here and be going all over the place with this one. But, yeah, I mean, Brazil, they need all the help they can get. And obviously they're hoping that Ancelotti can give it to them because, I mean, Denise, who, like I said, looks like Kenny Powers. I don't know. Denise at times looks like he's trying to have them do things and they can't quite pull it off. So I don't know. But, Brazil, 6th right now. 6th in the standings. 6th, I say. That's not good. It's far from good. Especially by their own expectations. Today being Wednesday, we went through all of the early stuff that's going on. Women's Champions League's later today. On DAZN, Lyon and St. Polten, Brann and Slavia Prague, doubleheader at 12:45. 3 o'clock, Benfica, Rosengard, Eintracht Frankfurt, Barca. The Brasileiros back on Paramount Plus. The day after Brazil loses in CONMEBOL, the National League's back at it. Brasileiro doubleheader, Cruzeiro, Vasco da Gama at 5, Fluminense, Sao Paulo at 7:30. And we mentioned what's going on tomorrow, this morning at the U17s. Tomorrow, just to let everybody know what's going on, since we're not going to be here live. FS2's got playoffs. Remember, it's the beginning of the playoff round. And so they're going to start at 10:10 on FS2 and Fox Deportes with Santos Laguna and Mazatlan. The early game in the playoffs is the 8 o'clock. It is Atletico San Luis and León tomorrow. Once again, 12:45 doubleheader DAZN USA Women's Champions League. PSG, Bayern, Haken, Real Madrid, Rome, Ajax, and Chelsea and Paris FC, not PSG, but Paris FC are at 3 o'clock. Paramount Plus has the Brasileiro tomorrow. Once again, doubleheader at 5 and 7:30. Fortaleza, Botafogo, Flamengo, and Red Bull Bragantino. And then we'll be back into normal stuff on Friday, early Friday morning, the U17s, 3:30 on FS2 AM. Spain and Germany, Brazil, Argentina. That'll be interesting. Early Friday morning. Brazil and Argentina in the U17s on FS2 at 7 o'clock in the morning. Universo simulcasting both. And we'll mention the other games because those will be going on as we go. But today it's the Women's Champions League doubleheader, the Brasileiro going on doubleheader. That's what's going on today. That's your activity for this afternoon here. For all of the viewing folk, that's what you're staring at. So gossip, rumor, and innuendo with folks going everywhere and doing everything. Now, let's see if I can actually – yesterday, I forgot to look at the publish date because you know how we have our bookmarks and you sit there and you have autofill. The one place I go to start my look for all of the players and player movement and who's interested and who's – I go to the BBC. And so with the BBC, I've got a bookmark and I've got a time code and you hit return, but it goes to the first time that I accessed it. And so yesterday, behind the fourth wall, I was actually reading transactions from September of 22. And then when I looked at, I was looking at that, wait a second, that dude's not, and then I realized that it was the default page and not the actual page and the updated page that I was looking at. So yes, John's an idiot. Portugal midfielder Ruben Neves not expected to leave Al Hilal in January. We got into that just a little bit ago. Bernardo Silva has hinted he could try to persuade João Neves to join Manchester City despite United's interest in the Benfica midfielder. That's from the Manchester Evening News. City's Silva says he'd like to return to play for Benfica before he finishes his career. He's 29. Erik ten Hag will not let Rafael Varane leave the club until the summer transfer window. That's from the three-letter paper. Juve hopeful that Dusan Vlahovic will agree to sign a contract extension at the club despite interest from Arsenal and Manchester United. Remember. It's about controlling the asset. It's not necessarily about keeping that asset for the entire length of the deal. It's controlling the asset so you at least get something back in return. Chelsea hoping that they'll be able to sell Romelu Lukaku next summer. Roma keen to make the 30-year-old's loan move permanent. Griezmann will not be joining Manchester United. His only focus is Atletico Madrid, courtesy of our friend Fabrizio Romano. Fulham will let João Palhinha leave to join Bayern Munich in January for less than the 60 to 65 million euro, 52 to 56 million pounds the club originally wanted. That's from Florian Plettenberg in Sky Germany. David De Gea has made it clear he doesn't want to go to Saudi. We talked yesterday about David De Gea being a part of Messi and Friends. David De Gea is currently starting keeper without Club FC. So now, David De Gea is now being linked to Messi and Friends because David Beckham wants him to drop by. What do you think's more appealing? And what do you think that contract's going to look like? Incentive-laden. It's going to look like the funkiest thing you've ever seen this week. Bayern Munich pushing to sign Japanese defender Takehiro Tomiyasu next summer. Arsenal don't want to let him go. Once again, that's from Florian Plettenberg. The delay of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's proposed minority takeover at Manchester United has increased fears that the club's January transfer plans could be ruined. And that should be a concern because they were looking for Ratcliffe to come in. You'd have the infusion of capital. You'd have everything laid out for you the way that you were hoping when it comes to bringing in folks. But if there's no sale, you have no increase in capital. Liverpool's Thiago Alcantara is among the options Barca could consider as they look to replace Gavi. Giovanni Lo Celso over at Spurs has also emerged as a loan option for Barca, who are unlikely to look for a permanent replacement for Gavi, despite receiving up to £6 million in compensation from FIFA following his injury on international duty. 4-letter paper, take the information at your own peril. Arsenal could allow midfielder Fabio Vieira to join Marseille on loan. Juve and Gleison Bremer. Juve's Gleison Bremer, if I could get my modifiers correct, my conjunctions correct. Juve's center back Gleison Bremer says he's keen to play in the Premier League. The FA says it is prepared to review evidence of potentially serious breaches of agent rules involving Spurs, Portsmouth, and Jermaine Defoe. We talked about that yesterday. And Liverpool, according to Football Insider, are leading the push for the Premier League to resolve Manchester City's financial fair play case. Of course you are. I'm shocked at that. Who knew that something like that could? Why would we be the ones to want to push that button? Speaking of Benjamin Mendy, Mendy plans to sue Manchester City for up to £10 million in lost earnings. Suspended in August of 21. After being charged with 4 counts of rape, did not play for the club again before leaving in June of 23. From September of 21 until the expiration of his contract, City did not pay the defender because they deemed him unavailable for work during his bail and subsequent trial and retrial. Mendy spent more than 4 months in custody before being released on bail in January of 22. Bail conditions stipulated he could not enter the county of Greater Manchester, where City train and play home matches, and he was required to surrender his passport. City are understood to be surprised that their former employee is taking action. He was found not guilty in January of raping 4 women, sexually assaulting another. Following the conclusion, a retrial over 2 outstanding charges of rape and attempted rape, he was acquitted in July. So Mendy signed for Ligue 1 Lorient in July. He and his agent have contacted City over recouping what they claim are lost earnings, believed to be between £9 and £10 million gross. Matters now set to go before an employment tribunal. His Majesty's Revenue and Customs have sought a bankruptcy order against the French international over a tax debt of nearly £800,000. Lawyer representing him, Louis Doyle, embarrassed about the fact he's not able to discharge it quicker than he's able to. He's saying, I want to pay as quickly as I can. I realize I'm in difficulty. It's the last orders at the Last Chance Saloon. Case was adjourned last month for 4 months with the intention of allowing time for Mendy to settle the dispute over with City. Mendy joined in 2017, became the most expensive fullback in the world, 6 years, $28 million deal. So keep an eye on that if you are into litigious natures and things. Let's see. Trying to see what I keep skipping over, looking at my notes. Oh, yeah, that. There was an article by our friends at Planet Sport. And I know that this may shock you. This may truly shock you. Having to do with Manchester City. There was a discussion that if things go against Manchester City in their FFP case, that that there might be a revolt of some kind. And it was let's see. Let's see if I can actually click the right thing to sit here and go with the news. UEFA was warned. Heinrich Griesel at Planet Sport. Here's Griesel's words. UEFA has received a stern warning that any outcome arising from the Premier League's allegation against Manchester City could lead to, quote, serious unrest among its member clubs. Griesel says the caution comes in the wake of Everton's points deduction, reigniting speculation on how the decision might influence potential sanctions against City if the allegations are proven. Then we talked about Manchester City and the 115 violations and things like that. They deny everything, and they're going to defend their position at a tribunal. The investigation by the Premier League mirrors a previous examination by UEFA, which in 2020 found City in breach of FFP, recommended a 2-year Champions League ban. However, CAS, our friends at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, overturned the decision clearing City of all charges except for non-cooperation with the UEFA investigation. Renewed focus on FFP and potential consequences for Manchester City raises concerns about the stability within UEFA and its member clubs, prompting fears of a mutiny if the case unfolds unfavorably for the Premier League champs. Dr. Gregory Ioannidis and Dr. Dan Plumley in the International Sports Law Review quote, "There are different dynamics present that control the decision-making of all stakeholders. Whatever the result of the present dispute, it's almost certain that UEFA will face serious unrest from its member clubs to a point of mutiny. The financial prowess of football clubs such as Manchester City, with the expert lawyers taking apart the inefficiency and complexity of the regulations, can only demonstrate how weak such regulations are in their application. It would not be good enough for the Premier League to argue that Manchester City failed to cooperate with the Premier League's investigation. The Premier League would have to go beyond this by proving that Manchester City, as a matter of fact and evidence, failed to produce accurate financial information and or lied about it in relation to their revenue within the meaning of the current regulations." Mutiny, they say. Mutiny, they claim. Mutiny, they claim. Finger in the air. Kevin Thelwell, who you might remember from his time at Red Bulls, Everton's director of football, posted a statement to the Everton website saying that there is now extra motivation because of the 10-point deduction. A wholly disproportionate ruling. He says, unity, focus, and determination to help win those points on the field of play, now supplemented by the additional fuel of what we believe is a wholly disproportionate ruling. Flag waving continued by Thelwell. "We are rallying in the face of a sporting sanction in the only way we can. And that is our focus, hard work, and in supporting the team and delivering to their fullest on the pitch." Yes, Thelwell says the club will remain united. So basically, big statement from Kevin Thelwell at Everton saying that we're not going to give up the ship, those kinds of things. Over to La Liga. Our buddy Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga, has resigned from his post this morning to run again in the upcoming election. On the 280-character app, Tebas said this morning, "A few minutes ago, I presented my resignation as president of La Liga prior to the end of my term of office, which ends on 23 December. A new electoral process will be open in which I will stand again. So I will ask for the endorsement and trust of the clubs to take on the challenges that we are facing," end quote. Electoral commission will be appointed in a process starting immediately. Tebas is currently the only candidate for the elections that don't have a date for the election. And Tebas is aiming for a 4th consecutive mandate. Reform the Spanish football television rights system, centralize the sale, railed against the Super League, now only supported by Real Madrid and Barcelona, Manchester City, and PSG. So Javier Tebas is running for his old gig to make it his new gig. Not a surprise. Javier Tebas wants to hang on to his job. So what does he do? He does what he wants to do to hang on to the job. He tells folks, you know what? I'm going to resign. And I'm going to resign so I can run again. Makes sense. Sure it does. You know how we kind of kept an eye on stuff involving Stephen Glass when he was over at Aberdeen. and I'll phrase it this way. The impatience of the ownership group in knowing what Stephen Glass was bringing to the table at Aberdeen. It was not what was there with previous administrations. It was not a previous way of thinking. It was not a previous way of play. It's about 180 degrees from it. Yet the ownership group decided that they did not want to exercise patience and decided to unceremoniously and prematurely, I will say, fire Stephen from his gig at Aberdeen. A place that he and his family hold dear in his heart from their time there, and the fans do the same. But the ownership group, I think, panicked. They freaked out. They would not let Stephen Glass cook. So Stephen gets let go. And Aberdeen is Aberdeen. They are what they are. You know, they're going to try to be the third best team in that league. And that's about it. Legitimately. That's about it. Standings right now, Celtic and Rangers, 1-2. Then there's your gap. And as I look at things this morning through the first 12 matches, or 11 or 13, depending on, you know, what you're staring at. Aberdeen is in the lower half. We'll get to that in a sec, Rich. Rich with a question about Thiago Almada. And it's going to be an open-ended answer, but we'll get into it. Aberdeen right now, they have a match or two in hand with folks that are above them, but they're in the lower half of the table. They are in the lower half of the table, and they are 2 points away from relegation right now. So at the Press and Journal, Scott Brown was interviewed, and he says that he insists, and Scott Brown says Stephen Glass deserved more time to turn the fortunes around. Agreed, totally. And it's weird to see Scott Brown with hair. I thought that I thought that him being bald was just a thing of age, but it was intimidation. Shaved his head on purpose. Glass was dismissed by the Dons in February of last year after just 11 months. 2-1 Scottish Cup loss at Motherwell. Many of the 2,000 traveling fans vented their anger. Cup exit, fourth defeat in 5, ninth in the Premier League table, which is where they are now. Brown rejected the offer of a new contract at Celtic to join Aberdeen in the summer of 21 as part of Glass's backroom staff and a player coach role. Reckons Glass should have been given more transfer windows to build a squad because Aberdeen supporters were enjoying the style of football. Scott Brown also says boss Barry Robson must be given time to deliver sustained success. Will also need a couple of transfer windows. Brown, quote, Stephen needed more time. You always need those couple of windows to make sure you get your players in. The fans seem to enjoy the football when we spoke to them. We got some good results as well, played some great football. However, we just couldn't get the wins we needed at the time. I was devastated when we didn't win games, and I was gutted when Stephen left. Ninth in the table, competing in Europa Conference League. Secured a Viaplay Cup final slot. Robson is the Dons' third manager since the sacking of Derek McInnes in March of 21. Brown insists Aberdeen must avoid the managerial merry-go-round and back Robson through any dips in form. Brown, quote, Dave Cormack, the chairman, and Robson are trying to go in the right direction. There are always going to be people that don't want you at a club. There are always going to be people that don't want you at a club. But I think the majority of the fans want Robbo to do well. They have to make sure they keep backing him week in and week out and have his back. You don't want to have that rotation of managers coming in every 6 months to a year because you're not getting third place. And that's where you are right now. Might take a couple of years to get to third. Might take 6 months like Robbo did last season when he did really well. Made a little bit of money being in Europe, so I'm sure Dave will want to back him as well. Jim Goodwin had come in from St. Mirren to replace Glass. No coaching role for Brown. Brown admitted he only planned to play for a year at Patadri, despite penning a 2-year contract as he aimed to learn his trade in management. When Steven left, I wanted to give Jim the opportunity of bringing in his own players. I was part of the background staff with Steven. Then I was just going back to becoming a player. The way I wanted to go was down the management route. Jim does it, meaning coaching, all himself. So Press and Journal. That might be your required reading of the day. Scott Brown's exclusive interview discussing what was going on after the dismissal of Stephen Glass. So, Rich, to your question, what's the plan in Atlanta on Almada's replacement? Need to know basis right now, and we don't need to know. I don't mean to sound kind of flippant about it, but traditionally the front office with Atlanta very, very tight-lipped. They've probably been working on solutions for a while, keeping an eye on players, figuring out what to do. The front office has never been a front office to sit there and say, well, yeah, we're chasing after this guy or this guy or this guy. All the information that we receive about players is outside in. It is never inside out. So I would anticipate and would be anticipating for a long time that there are folks that are more than happy to sit there and say, well, I think that we'd like Thiago Almada. Well, we'd like Thiago Almada. Well, we'd like Thiago Almada. Remember, all that information, Rich, is coming from the outside. The calls coming from inside the house. That never happens. Because the last thing you want to do, Abby will get to it in a sec. The last thing you want to do is sit there and say, yeah, we're looking to sell somebody. And we're looking for this much. Because the last thing you want to do is set a price tag that could be too low. Never mention a number. Never mention a team. I can't think of any instance with any player where the Atlanta United front office has said, you know what, we're shopping so-and-so for, we're shopping Brian Roche for $2 million. Brian Roche, who was playing for Honduras last night. Yeah, Blake with the injury and he played the whole match, waiting to hear what happened with that. Have seen nothing about it yet. But yeah, with Thiago Almada, Rich, think about it this way. Let's say somebody's knocking on Philly's door for Andre Blake, a healthy Andre Blake, 100%. All the information that you would ever see, and you've known that people have been chasing after Andre Blake for a long time. Like I said, this is the hypothetical example. The last thing you're going to want your front office to sit here and say is that, yeah, we'll ship Andre Blake to Europe for $15 million. Because then you've already said where you want him to go and what your calling card, what your asking price is. That's the last thing you want to do, is set up yourself to be pinned in economically. And I'm fairly certain that with a player of Thiago Almada's status and stature, the front office has basically been, ever since all of this talk has happened, and probably before that, we heard information about teams overseas. We are hearing $30 million. We're hearing 35, blah, 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 40, what have you. It'll be a new transfer record in some manner, way, shape, or form, unless Atlanta gets a piece of the pass. Maybe a little less, keep him a little longer. These kinds of things you got to keep an eye out for. But for a while, you're not going to sit. You've been investigating for a while. You're trying to look at that next young big thing that you can sit there and say, all right, well, if we get 30 or 35, if we spend half of that bringing in the next young great thing from, say, South America or Central America or Europe, probably South American talent to fit stylistically, something from this hemisphere. You're not going to sit there and say, well, we've been looking at this for 6 months, and we think that Thiago should go to La Liga, and he will do this. So, when it comes to your front office, when it comes to players who are being searched and having the tires kicked on them or the cleats kicked so they can go to Europe, the investigations have been happening with the front office to find replacements, hopefully either one of two ways, either through the academy if you're confident, or using some of that transfer fee money to bring in another individual. Those discussions, if your front office is worth their salt, they've been going for a while. The second that we know that individuals are being looked at, the front office has probably been at it for months. So they've been digging. They're traditionally not going to say anything. And no front office should, just because you don't want to pin yourself into a corner, because then, not just for this negotiation, for the player that we're talking about, whomever he is, the next big thing that you're looking to ship out and get a transfer fee for, you've set the marketplace, and teams will know around the world how much of a negotiator you are. Oh, yeah, we can steamroll them. That's easy, because you saw what they did with so-and-so. Player X, they only said that they were looking for this much. They undersold. You're going to have folks jumping at your club to try to bring in players. It's like, oh, you want to sell him? Okay, well, considering what you did for this guy, then how about we give you this guy, for this price, that kind of a thing. So that's kind of what you're staring at. I mean, just think about it from a front office perspective. Need to know basis, we don't need to know if your front office is worth their salt. If they want to negotiate in public, then they're only, selling themselves short and setting a marker for everybody else in future negotiations. Abby, was it already mentioned? Argentina, I think, is confirmed for game in the opening tournament here in June. Not yet. It makes sense for that to be the case, Abby, but not yet. We don't know the opening draw. We won't know the opening draw until December 7. That's in Miami. That'll be on 2 to NA. Then that way we can see the groups and we'll see, what it all looks like. It would make sense for Argentina to be the team here, but it's not official yet. Your 4 groups, Group A, B, C, and D, will be determined on December 7 in Miami, on 2 to NA probably, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, Messi, he's got an adductor injury, and he had to be subbed after 78 minutes. He's going to shut it down for the rest of this season, come back in 24. And by the way, that whole thing about the Inter Miami and Messi and friends going over to play CR38, where Cristiano Ronaldo's club sits there and says, hey, we're releasing a statement. Here's some quotes. Hey, look at this. It's going to be Messi and Ronaldo. And Inter Miami's like, not so fast, my friend. They picked up the Ticonderoga 2 pencil, and they were like, that was in error. That is not the case. Yeesh. So is it? Probably. Is it right now? No. Why? We don't know. But somebody jumped the gun. And Messi and friends and the front office came out with a statement basically saying, no, that is not the case. Do not be surprised if it eventually does happen. But on the terms of Messi and friends and not the Saudi club sitting there and saying, hey, look what we're doing. Somebody jumped the gun to make the announcement. It's probably going to happen, just not yesterday, at least according to Inter Miami, even though the press release had quotes from Jorge Mas from the Saudi Arabians, the Saudi Arabian side of things. Congratulations on that. Yeah, Rich, I saw this. Hall and Oates are suing each other now. And I saw a lot of jokes. I saw all the jokes. Pick your lyrics. You know, one of them looks at the lawyer representing. One of them looks at the lawyer representing the other, and sees a female walking down the hall. A female lawyer. Look out, here she comes. She's a man eater. All those jokes. All of the Hall & Oates jokes. They were coming. Absolutely, they were coming. So knew that was coming the entire time. All of those jokes, and they're not done. That they're going to be coming for quite some time, and it's sad. It's disappointing. You want all of those acts that you enjoy, that you want them to go happily ever after. You want them to live the way that they live. You always want to have your heroes laid out the way that you always want to have them pictured in your head. You don't want them fighting all the time. You don't want to have them fighting all the time and have something like this. But then you end up with Hall & Oates jokes for an entire weekend. Yes, Philadelphia's own suing each other in Nashville. Yeah. Well, and it probably would be easier to. Well, it might. Doesn't one of them live in like a farm outside of Nashville? Doesn't one of them live in Tennessee now? I mean, because they're resurrecting the show after a 5-year absence of doing it. Daryl Hall's place. I think Daryl might be the one that lives in Nashville or something. But yeah, so it might be just easier when it comes to geography and stuff like that. So, yeah, Hall & Oates are suing each other. That's never cool. Yeah, and it is. From seeing the show, if I don't know how much of that stuff gets brought in for the taping. At least 5 years ago, it was pretty dope. And I can use the word dope. The part of the required reading for your Thanksgiving is learning about Jess's Club. Over at the Telegraph, they have a background on Reading FC and how things went in the absolute issue for her club. 4th tier, heading for the 4th tier for the first time since 1984. 1984. That's what you're staring at. So it's an in-depth read, and I think it's an important read for all of us to once again, we have our ties to our clubs and things like that. So you have stories like that. No, it has not been fixed, completed, or whatever. It has not been fixed yet. When you start to see the large buildings developed in the Gulch, that'll be the beginning of it all. You're seeing a lot of cranes now and everything and all of that, but it has not been fixed. It is still part of the development, and it will be for years. So, Rich, where you were when we saw you, and your scarf that you gave me is right over there. No, it has not been fixed. So I imagine for the foreseeable future, it will be in that lot when you come and visit all of your friends here from SDH, and you get to discuss things. Once again, reminder out the door that we're once again reissuing the Atlanta is America Soccer Vic Crow scarf. We are resurrecting this scarf for the holidays. Yesterday, today, always. We are resurrecting this as a fundraiser for the holidays for our friends in the Marshall Islands. It's step 1 of a 2-step process. $25 in shipping. Just let me know how. And these are getting reordered. I'm getting a large box from our friends at Die Hard. But we are resurrecting, and we are doing a pre-sale and a sale to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands. Once again, step 1 of a 2-step process. If you did not get it the first time, or if you're looking for a stocking stuffer for the holidays. So that's a Wednesday. And thanks for hanging out for a Wall Pass Wednesday. As always, we are always thankful for all of you, because this is year 7, season 7 here at the network for doing the morning show. And we could not do any of this, the programs, all that stuff, without you guys. And we are incredibly thankful and grateful as we have continued to grow. Might have some new things happening in 24. We're going to have an expanded high school schedule, and we're going to have, a lot of other high school games. Yeah, Rich, it'll be power hour-y, I'm guessing, to start, and we'll just go until we stop. But yeah, 9:05, we'll be back. And we'll be back on Friday to discuss things, get you ready for the weekend, all that kind of stuff. But Thursday, taped content. It is listener requests and new programming. We'll catch up with Nico Moreno later today, run that tomorrow. So that'll be fresh. Prem and Proper with Maddie and Drew and getting you ready for the Premier League weekend. That'll be on Friday. Am I missing anything else? Prem and Proper highlights. We'll see if we can pull anything out of the USL Championship with Phoenix Rising getting the title and having a celebration. So we'll have some original programming. Tomorrow will be tape. And happy Thanksgiving, Abby, to you and everybody. And happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Because like I said, we could not do this without you. And we could not do this without your support every single time that we hit the play button, hit the record button, or post something to the app. Happy Turkey Day to all of you and yours. And may you spend time with family. May you be safe on the roads. Weather's dicey in some points, and roads kind of dicey too. So just be safe, be healthy, be happy. Tape stuff tomorrow. Listen to it. And then we'll be back 9:05 Friday morning, and we'll get you ready for the weekend as we always do. So for everybody here at SDH, thanks for hanging out with us. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your Thursday. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Get your naps in. Enjoy your football. Enjoy your football. And we'll catch up with you again Friday morning at 9:05 across the network. So for everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. It's the end of the show. That means I get to do one thing. Mucha to play it safe. We'll catch up with y'all on tape tomorrow, all over the place, and on Friday morning at 9:05. Be good.